What has been the big takeaway from 2020? Obviously, we are all working from home, and the second is there is no sign of the craze for SUVs dying down. The compact SUV segment, it is booming. More manufacturers are jumping into it, and the newest in that lot is Nissan with the Magnite. But how does the Magnite fare against the compact SUV that gave wings to this segment, the Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza? That's what we are here to find out. We'll be pitching the Magnite against the Vitara Brezza on the road in terms of performance, in terms of comfort, in terms of efficiency, and also in terms of the thrill of driving. But before we go any further, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the Evo India channel. So why do we have only these two in this compact SUV comparo? Now we've got tests with all the other rivals in this class, the Nexon, the EcoSport, the Venue, the Sonet, all of them. The links are up here so you can go check it out. We wanted to keep this test a little compact to go with the class, and obviously the Vitara Brezza is here because this has been the bestseller for very long. It is the oldest in the lot and the Magnite is the newest in the lot. But in terms of pricing, they are more or less on par. The Magnite that we have here is the top-end manual, and the Brezza is around 70,000 rupees more, same trim. The Magnite, it sets the cat amongst the pigeons in terms of its pricing and also in terms of the value offering. And value is something that Maruti Suzuki has always scored on, and that's why we have these two. Also, these two are Japanese. But first, we'll head out in the Vitara Brezza to remind ourselves what makes the Brezza such a strong seller in this class. It's easy to dismiss the Vitara Brezza. After all, this is the oldest in this test, and even though it has been updated for BS6 norms, the update basically has been the old 1.3 diesel has been thrown out and in comes this 1.5 petrol. But apart from that, this is more or less the same. You get LED lights and some little chrome garnishes, but that's about it. This is more or less unchanged. Also, doesn't get a turbo petrol engine. The automatic is only a 4-speed automatic. This is only a 5-speed gearbox, but the shift quality is very good. It is slick, the throws are short. It is like what a Japanese gearbox should feel like. The Brezza doesn't get a turbo petrol engine. The automatic is only a 4-speed automatic. No DCT, no CVT, no nothing. The manual also, it's only a 5-speed manual, no 6-speed manual in this. So you might say that Maruti Suzuki is probably taking its buyers for granted. But then again, once you start driving the Brezza, you realize that this is actually pretty good to drive. This platform is very different from the current range of Maruti Suzuki cars in terms of the lightness. Now, all the current Maruti Suzuki cars feel a little too light and flighty, whereas the Brezza, it actually rides very well. It feels robust. Like going over these bad roads, it takes it very well in its stride. And then you rev a Japanese petrol engine, a naturally aspirated engine, and you tend to enjoy yourself. Like all good Japanese naturally aspirated engines, this 1.5 unit loves to rev. It revs enthusiastically. It sounds good when revved, and it is quick enough. It makes 103 bhp, 138 Newton meters of torque, and the chassis, it can take you flinging it round corners. It doesn't feel too light, doesn't feel too floaty. It actually has its wits about itself. There's no getting away from the fact that the Brezza is very common. You see it all over the place. But there's also no getting away from the fact that Maruti Suzuki's network is vast, and nobody who owns a Vitara Brezza complains about their SUV. Reliability, quality, longevity, it's all there. And that's the reason why Toyota has just slapped on their badges on the Brezza and called it the urban cruiser. This car, it meets all of Toyota's quality standards as well. And we all know the significance that Toyota places on quality. Now the downsides of the Brezza. From the outside, very, very familiar. On the inside, very, very familiar, and dare I say it, very dated as well. These clocks, this infotainment, the whole layout of the dash, the all black, this is dated. There is no two ways about it, and there's no getting away from the fact this needs an update, and I'm sure Maruti is working on an update. But as of now, this is the car that you get, so you got to live with it and be happy with it. The steering, I must point out that this is again one of the nicest in Maruti Suzuki's range. Doesn't feel too light, doesn't feel flighty. It returns on its own. It's not like you have to return it yourself. Doesn't feel weird like the other cars. And the ride quality, the bad patch, it takes it rather well. Like what an SUV ought to do. Obviously, this is the front wheel drive SUV. But in terms of the platform, because it has been derived from the S-Cross, it has slight SUV genes to it. It's not a pure hatchback platform. And I think the whole get up and go of the Vitara Brezza, it does this class justice. There is a reason why this has sold so well over so many years, and that's because the quality is great, the driving dynamics are pretty good even today, even considering today's class benchmarks. So to conclude on the Vitara Brezza, ignore it at your peril. But how does it compare against the Magnite? Very interested to find out. So the Nissan Magnite. First things first, let's see how it tackles a bad patch of road. This is Nissan's make or break car. Compact SUV car, call it what you may. This really needs to work. This really needs to sell for Nissan to make a business case for itself. And as you can see from the outside, this was first going to be a Datsun, and that's why it's got that Datsun grille and not that Nissan V-Motion grille as they call it. So over a bad patch of road, the Magnite, it actually takes it quite well. The ride quality is good. I think it's on par with the Brezza. It's not better than the Brezza. The Brezza feels a little more robust. This feels very light. Like all new cars today, the Magnite 2, it feels very light. It is also much lighter than the Brezza. Now, in terms of the powertrain, this is a modern powertrain. It's a 1-liter turbo petrol engine. The first time we are seeing this from the Renault-Nissan Alliance, and after this it will go into the Kiger, which is Renault's version of the Magnite. This platform, it also does remind me of the Kwid and the Triber because it has obviously been adapted from it. So in terms of the way it drives and also in terms of the lightness, it does remind me of those small cars. The gearbox also, it's only a 5-speed, it's not a 6-speed manual, and the clutch is a little too sharp and jumpy. The gearbox too, it's not like what you'd expect a Japanese gearbox to feel like. Long in throws, notchy. You really have to put in a bit of effort into using this gearbox. In fact, if you're looking at a Magnite, I would definitely recommend the CVT because it feels much nicer than a manual. This is the first time I've ever recommended a CVT gearbox, but on the Magnite, I definitely recommend that CVT gearbox. It's not as smooth a powertrain as the Brezza's is. As enthusiasts, we keep talking about turbo petrols and turbo petrols being good and great and all of that. But fact is, a well thought out, naturally aspirated petrol really can still do the job and do the job very well.
However, crucial engineering updates have been made to the CMFA platform to enable the Magnite to score 4 stars in the ASEAN NCAP crash tests. And the tests were done with the Made in India Magnite, which has already started exports to Indonesia and South Africa.
The motor, it makes 98 bhp, so it is slightly down on the Brezza, but it has more torque, 160 Newton meters to 138 on the Brezza. In terms of refinement, the Brezza is definitely better. It scores on that front because this engine is noisy. It is a 3-cylinder engine and it is obviously a 3-cylinder engine. It sounds a bit coarse and gravelly, doesn't sound sporty when you cane it. In terms of outright acceleration, on paper, the Magnite is slightly quicker, but in the real world, both are on par. The Brezza and the Magnite, they would be absolutely on par. It's just that the Brezza feels a little more enthusiastic and a little more eager when you drive it harder. And that's not just the powertrain, it's also the chassis, because when you drive it a little faster, the Magnite, it comes across as being a bit too soft. So it doesn't feel as planted as the Brezza. It does move around a bit more. The steering, it has got absolutely no feel and no precision as well. I think this is one of the weak links in the Magnite's chain. The steering it's not nice at all. But then the Magnite scores in terms of features and equipment, and it scores big time. So what all does the Magnite get? It gets a much wider infotainment touchscreen. It gets wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. It gets a wireless charger. It also has more space inside the cabin, quite a few more cubby holes. It gets a JBL branded stereo. No sunroof, but then it's a good thing. I don't think anything should have sunroof with the way we abuse sunroofs in this country. It's got digital meters, and even though I think this is a little too much, the graphics, most of the guys in the team like it, so I would give it to them. And it definitely is more modern and far more appealing than the Brezza's clocks. The layout of the dash also, the design of the dash, it looks better, more appealing. So overall, in terms of the feature count, in terms of the equipment, the Magnite definitely scores, and scores like really big time over the Brezza. And you get all of this at a far better price point. So all this equipment, this additional equipment, and you save 1.1 lakh rupees over the Brezza. There's no getting away from that. This is great value, and that is a reason why people will start flocking to Nissan showrooms.
And that's the reason why the Magnite has received solid response, 32,800 bookings. And Nissan haven't increased the introductory prices except for the base model, so it remains a fantastic value for money offering.
This price equation is brilliant. You get more space, you get a funky looking exterior, more features, a newer car, a turbo petrol engine, and you save a fair amount of cash. And in this segment, saving money is a big deal, and saving a lakh of rupees is a very big deal. At over a lakh of rupees cheaper than the Brezza, it is hard not to recommend the Nissan Magnite. Plus, it looks cooler, it has got more space on the inside, and it has got plenty more equipment. And I must mention, if you're looking for an automatic in this test, you definitely should look at the Magnite, because the CVT gearbox on the Magnite with the turbo petrol engine is a far better combination than that old 4-speed automatic than the Brezza gets. But that said, the Vitara Brezza, I would not discount it. In fact, the Brezza is nicer to drive. The powertrain is smoother. The ride and handling is better. It is more stable, more composed, and it is more fun to drive. But ultimately, if pricing is what decides this test, then the Nissan Magnite, it takes the cake.
Subscribe to the Evo India channel and hit the bell icon to keep pace with the thrill of driving.